Hello and welcome to the New Age Geek channel. If you're new here with an inclusive space for people of all walks of life through the power of friendship, and tabletop role-playing games. Today we have Investigation Check, our regular irregular interview show in which I talk to the geeky creators you want to know about. Tonight we have Dungeon Master, interviewer, owner of the Tabletop Misfits, and the local Viking Raider, James of Tabletop Misfits. How you doing tonight, James?
Doing great, man. Excited to be here.
Good. Go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you. I'll put your link tree in the chat.
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere at Tabletop Misfits. You'll notice it by the blue wizard that's everywhere. You can find me over at Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok as of right now. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, James, are you ready for tonight's episode? You ready to dive in?
All right, let me get comfy.
Yeah, get comfy.
Yep, I'm good.
Stretch it out. Now I want you to take me back in time. I want you to bring me back. You're a big boy, so I'm gonna go with 8-pound, 4-ounce little baby James, fresh out the womb.
A lot smaller than that, but yeah,
just crawls out. What is like your kind of first introduction into the geek space? Was it a book? Was it TV, a cartoon, or what was that?
I would say my first introduction into the geek space was the idea of cartoons. Mm-hmm. Cartoons and Legos were my thing as a child. I've always created stuff. I had way too many Legos, for way too long, and not that hasn't developed again as I got older. But yeah, I would build literal cities and create the characters and run them through things and scenarios throughout my entire life. Mm-hmm. And then 8 years old is when I started really dipping into the geekverse.
Okay.
So for those that are old like myself, if you've heard of a thing called Neopets.
Okay.
Yeah. So goofy game, online. I was poor, so I didn't have a computer, so I would literally go down to the library in our local town and I would play for hours. But what I did is, instead of playing just the goofy games on it or trying to take care of this little creature that I have to take care of, no, I found collaborative writing groups. And I was writing, my first writing group was in a Dragon Riders of Pern series.
Nice.
Back in, I was 8, 7, something like that.
Okay.
And I don't even know what year that was at this point. So, I think like 95, 96.
Okay.
So yeah, and I would go from, I started with that, and then all of a sudden I went to writing my own. And I was the guild leader at the time, writing this collaborative story about a character that I still run to this day called Dakin. Mm-hmm. He has been my character since I was 8 years old. He was the name of my dog. He's been in multiple books now for things that I've written, and he lives on in infamy. And it's great. I love it. But yeah, we wrote in the Kingdom of Arathis, or not Arathis, Arathia at the time, which was spawned from the game Heroes of Might and Magic.
Okay. Jesus.
So
I think we're the same age, because I know all of these things.
Yeah, right? This is how this feels, right? So you get to dive back down the rabbit hole with me.
Heroes of Might and Magic. God, I haven't played that game in fucking 30 years.
Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I actually re-picked up when I joined the military almost 20 years later. Because my buddy, we bought a projector and we would literally play it on the side of our dorm room for hours. But different story, farther down the road, of course. And then I moved from Neopets and I went to something called MSN Groups, which, if you've, like I said, let's dive down the same path, because I have a feeling you and I are very similar. And I learned how to type through MSN group chat battles. So we did Zoids, Gundams, medieval-based, fantasy-based, anything you can think of. I was running these things, or writing for these. And that's where I got into graphic design. That's where I got into web design. That's where I got into creative thinking and building systems but I didn't know what Dungeons and Dragons was. I don't know how I didn't know what Dungeons and Dragons was, but I had no idea. So we're making our own systems. I wish I could find the archives of MSN groups from back then to pull some of these things, because they could literally be put in books at this point. And then in high school, I met a guy through MSN groups. Don't say it's not the safest thing to do. I understand this completely. Small town, weirdly enough, less than 10,000 people in the town, and I find out one of the guys I've been writing with for year, 2 years, lives just down the street, like a couple blocks.
Wow.
Never met the kid ever. He went to a rival school technically, and his mom owned a bird shop in the local town. So we met up there. He was originally from Kent State, which is a big college campus in Ohio, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing up at the campus this weekend. Do you want to go?" And I was maybe 13, 14, so freshman, sophomore in high school. And I get there, 7:00 at night. First off, my mother just drops me off. I don't understand this.
It was a different time. It was a different time.
It was a different time, like I said. And I walk out and onto a college campus as a freshman in high school, and there are 40 people dressed in trench coats, spiked collars, white paint on their face, fake vampire teeth, and I'm walking straight into a Vampire the Masquerade LARP.
Oh my God.
Right out of nowhere. So that was my introduction to TTRPGs, was a vampire LARP to the size of that. Yeah, it was crazy. So I go up, and first time I'd ever been to my buddy's house, his dad's house, which was in Kent. We did that from 7:00 at night until 2:00 in the morning, and then we went back to his house, slept for like 5 hours, got up, went back to the campus at 1:00, and they said, "Hey, we're starting D&D at 1. It runs until 7, and then you start Vampire for the second night from 7 to 2." Yeah. I've been doing convention lifestyle since I was 14 years old.
Yeah, to have no responsibilities again.
Yeah, that'd be great,
Jesus.
right? So the guy that originally introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons, he was probably in his early 50s, late 50s at the time, and he was running a table in the Kent State student room and they took over the giant like board table that they had. 16 players, my first time ever playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow.
And this man ran it like it was 4 players. Like, it was crazy how much he knew. And this was back in the day where...
That would have been like third edition, right?
Yeah, it was third edition. It was bright and early third edition, too.
It's a crunchy game.
Yeah, and this is in the world where, we didn't have laptops, we didn't have tablets. So this man's bringing over 2 full suitcases full of index cards, maps, books. Yeah. I mean, you name it, he's got it, right? And he just wheels this thing in and lays it out, and this map scatters across the entirety of the table. And all of a sudden, they're like, "Who do you want to play?" And I was like, "I want to play my paladin, because it's the only character I've ever written ever, and I've ever known about." So he was introduced first into Dungeons and Dragons as well, and that was my introduction to the TTRPG space at that point.
So I gotta ask, like, what was it? What kind of game was it? Was it like a more role-play game? Was it a very crunchy combat game? Like, what was your first experience in D&D like?
Especially it was 16. Like, it was with the amount of people that we were playing with, there was role-play, but as soon as combat hit, everybody was on 100% at the time. Maps were out, but it wasn't the maps that we see nowadays. It's not a bunch of terrain. It was a grid piece of paper, drawn out everything. And they were using marbles or something, or meeples type things.
Yeah.
And, could have, in all honesty, been like sorry pieces. In all honesty, I don't know. I can't remember at this point. It's been a few years.
Yeah.
Few years.
Yeah. A few years. Oh my god.
But yeah, and then that was kind of where I dived into the TTRPG space, and I was always a big card player. So I did Pokemon, and then Yu-Gi-Oh, or then Magic, then Yu-Gi-Oh, then Warhammer, or not Warhammer, Warcraft, and I literally just would buy enough cards to go to the local game store, to go to tournaments, to win, so that I could buy the next set that I needed for the next set of cards that I was playing. So, but yeah, I was running those on the weekends when I wasn't going up to a college campus, way younger than I should have been. Yeah, it was an interesting time in life, that's for sure.
Jeez. So how long did that like that D&D game go with the 16-player game? Was it just a kind of a one-time thing, or did you go a long term?
No, so we played. So I was 14. I stopped about when I was 17, so about 3 years.
Okay.
But it was very on and off.
Yeah.
Like it was, 16 people would be this week, 14 people this week, 8 people the next week, then 10 people would show up. There's probably on average about 10 people at all times throughout the 3 years that we played. But he had a world that was built the same size as the Earth, and he had everything fleshed out. I mean, this man's probably been doing it since it was first edition at the time. Right. So, yeah.
So what is it about that whole experience that felt that you really enjoyed and kind of like drew you into the whole tabletop space?
Oh goodness. I mean, I love the collaborative idea, but it felt like I was finally, we had lost MSN groups because they closed it down, and then I didn't really have those types of spaces anymore to do writing or to do that creative thinking type stuff. And all of a sudden this shows up, and I was like, oh, this is literally just the next phase of my life at this point. And I was always a big reader. So I had read Lord of the Rings, I had read Dragon Riders of Pern, I read Dragonlance, read Forgotten Realms, started reading into other more like unusual type, like not just the ones that people knew about, and I started figuring out, I'm like, oh wow, there's so much out here. And then, but I never really had a space where I could connect with people on, and that's kind of what happened. Once I connected, then I started reading into, the lore of Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf and Mage and Changeling and Mummy and Hunter, and back when White Wolf still owned it, so it wasn't even what Renegade Games has developed it as.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, Mage still is the most broken system I've ever played. Most broken system.
Why do you say that?
It was very light. It was very rules light, and you could do almost anything if you were a certain type of mage. Like running into, like, you think vampires and werewolves are strong, and then you get a chrono mage that's just like, stop. And it's not like you can stop you for like short period. No, just stop. I'll come back later and deal with you. Like, are we kidding?
Your session's done for the day. You can go home. Come back.
Yeah,
I'll see you next week.
It was really that bad at times. I was like, we've got to be kidding me. This is nuts. And people started diving into some serious lore in this. And I will say that's kind of where things got a little hazy for me, because it went from, this is a game, to like, people are starting to believe themselves that this is what they are. And I'm like, this is where I start to step away from the puzzle piece.
Yes.
So yeah, this was that was kind of where I had to step away. Plus, I was getting out of high school and moving to college. And we played a little bit in college, but it wasn't nearly like that type of mentality. But I've always played. I might have hiatuses where there's times that I didn't get to play, but I've always enjoyed playing TTRPGs. And
so, a theme I'm kind of seeing through this whole thing is the ability to create, like whether it be Legos, whether it be telling stories through chat, or making characters and building this world. What is it about that storytelling or that creative energy that just seems to like fill you up and give you the energy you need?
So for me, it's because of my day-to-day, and it's kind of how my brain thinks. So I'm a cybersecurity analyst by trade.
Okay.
So I use ones and zeros. I'm always mathematical. I'm always mechanical. I don't get a lot of opportunities to utilize my creative self or that other side of your brain. And normally it's when I didn't do that, I started feeling like there was just a piece of me that was not getting any sort of use. In the military, you work out to get stronger, you do your job to get smarter, but like there was nothing that was getting me more creative. It was never giving me that influence that I needed for stuff like that. And I had noticed times in my life where I had to put it away. Those were those moments that I started to see that dark side of things, where it was like, I'm missing a piece of me. I'm not full right now. And it really showed up when I left for my first remote tour in the military. It was after my son was born. He was about 3 years old, and I had to go to Korea for a year. And I was alone. I didn't have anybody else. And all of a sudden, somebody's like, "Hey, Friday nights we're doing D&D," and it was like the light bulb just burst back on, and I was like, "My people, they've appeared again." And I came back from that year in Korea, and then shortly after had to leave immediately after for a tour to Iraq, and same thing, and that's where Misfits kind of stemmed from.
Okay.
Is we started, literally me and a guy that I was deploying with, neither one of us knew we liked D&D or that we were playing, and all of a sudden we started talking. It's kind of that weird thing where you like, you throw out the D20 and see if he understands what you're talking about or not, like, and because everybody's kind of, do we talk about it, do we not talk about it, like, what is going on with this? Well, sooner or later the conversation came out, and we said, hey, we're going to run down to the local USO, we're going to print out 20 character sheets, and we're just going to start rolling characters up because we're bored.
Right.
Within 2 weeks, we filled an entire table of 4 nations, 3 branches, 12 people for 6 months straight, every Friday night for anywhere between 3 and 6 hours.
Wow.
And I will tell you, I remember more of that campaign while I was deployed than I do anything else I did while I was there.
That tracks.
So, yeah. And we branched it off to running 2 or 3 other mini campaigns throughout it, where we were just kind of, hey, so and so is going to be there on a Friday, or not going to be there Friday, but they're going to be there on a Tuesday. Okay, us 5 are going to get together. We're going to run a different game on Tuesdays. And I was doing that in college, and that was it. That, college, and hitting the gym, and that was literally my life while I was deployed.
Wow.
And that's where the Misfits came from, because a bunch of us we're all different. Like, we had an Australian, we had Sweden, we had Canadians, or not Sweden, Denmark.
Yeah.
Denmark, Australia, Canada, Army, Navy, Marine, and Air Force. All of them were all there. And and everybody's just having a good time.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting way to see how you can actually collaborate even with those barriers. Like, thankfully we didn't have the language barrier. Like, that would have made things a lot more difficult.
Little tough with that one.
little tough with that one, right? But at least everybody spoke English, which was the best part about it. So, but it was still cool to see that collaboration, because otherwise none of us would have ever met the entire time we were in the desert. And we some of us still talk to this day.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's what comes up. It's, hey man, do you remember when we did this dumb thing in the game? It's like, yes, actually I do. And that's when I came back to the States, and I said, I need this in my life permanently. I'm not going to sacrifice it. I'm not going to put it on the back burner. And I started my own home game as soon as I got back to the States, and I was like, nope, this is a weekly thing. I've got to have it. Like, it helped me mentally very much so.
So why you have this big creative drive and this big creative energy? Why do you find yourself and I don't mean this in a negative way, I'm just asking if you may understand, why do you find yourself being drawn to jobs and things that are the antithesis of that?
Oh,
Listen, I'm not one to talk, so
no, I mean the main reason is my grandfather was a old school programmer back in the 70s.
okay.
He sat me on his lap when I was 3 years old and said, "Hey, this is a computer. This is how you do it." And it was either in. I literally started learning then.
Yeah.
I've been sitting in front of a computer since I was probably 3, and which most people can't say because they didn't have computers back then. But we did. We had one in my grandfather's house that was, it was green and black, but it was still a computer. And the 8.5-inch floppy disks instead of the so. But I still remember those, and my grandfather always told me, he said, follow this track. And I watched my grandfather's lifestyle and what he achieved in his life with this.
Right.
And I just saw a blueprint and I followed it.
Yeah.
And it's led me in very amazing ways. I got my bachelor's in computer science and networking management, and I went and I said, okay, just keep following the computer path, and I followed it, and life is great. I'm never going to say that it was ever a bad idea to do so. And it allows me to do things like this. A lot of people, and I feel bad to say this, but a lot of people struggle being in this space financially in a lot of ways, because this is what they want to do full time. I'm glad that I can do this part time because of a full time position that I have. So, and I appreciate it because it allows me to come out and hang out with people at conventions and things like that.
Yeah.
Lets me be a kid a little bit. So.
Yeah. So do you see this as more of a hobby that you are trying to monetize? And don't take that as obviously you want to, I don't mean that negatively, because everyone should be able to make money doing what you love.
Right.
Do you see this as a hobby that you want to monetize, or do you see this as a business you're starting and you're just playing it, balancing your full-time job and while building the business?
I think at first I thought this was going to be a business that I was going to be able to transition out of. I think this is now a professional hobby of mine. I think that it will always be that until either one, the income changes for the requirements, or I can make that opportunity to, in other ways, to slow down my normal day to day and be able to put more time into this. But I also see this as a platform to allow others to have that opportunity as well. This was never supposed to be a one-man show.
Right.
The Misfits was never supposed to be that. This is a collaborative world. This is a collaborative lifestyle that we live when it comes to this stuff. And for me personally, this has given me opportunities to allow others to have their spotlight and their light shine as well, which is where we're moving towards. I did a year by myself, and it was rough, and it was a lot of work, and we've found some really amazing content creators and people that are just in it for the same reasons, and are okay with the slow growth. They're okay with, this is a hobby, but we're putting work towards it. I never want to give something that's just 50%.
Right.
So
what advice would you have then for people that are thinking, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to be the next critical role, I'm going to dominate the space? What advice would you have from them for someone who's looking back on 3 years plus of experience now in the space? What advice would you have for those people?
Dream big, but realize that, and this is something I've told many people, is that you have to have already built that platform before you can do stuff like that. A lot of people want to be the next critical role, but a lot of people don't have 40 years of voice factoring experience behind them to do so. They used what they already had as a gift and placed it in this industry And I see that as a way to move forward. But I never will tell anybody not to give it a try. We started at one.
Yeah.
I started at one person. I'm not a theater major. I don't have acting experience. I don't have any sort of natural ability when it comes to theatrics and that kind of thing. I'm a military guy, and I'm a ones and zeros guy. So for me, this was that opportunity to learn something new, to create something new, and to find people that were in that similar boat. So I would say, yeah, go for the dreams, but don't let it affect you to the point where you're no longer enjoying it, because that's where I was at first. Yeah.
What kind of like drove you to the point where you kind of felt like you needed to start stepping back and not stepping back in a negative way, but
running 3 streams and 3 professional running games a week, plus a full-time job.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And 1 kid and 3 stepkids at the time, and yeah, I was overloaded.
Yeah.
The only thing I was not getting is sleep. That was the only thing I was not getting. But I will say, and I don't know how deep we want to go with this one though, but one of the main reasons I did that is I was running away from something in my personal life too.
Okay.
So
yeah, I won't make you dive into that if you're not comfortable.
I mean, we can. I mean, I've gotten used to it at this point. So
I'm sure
if it's something.
So you've had Tabletop Misfits now for exactly how long? I know it's over 3 years. What's the exact time? Do you know? Are you at 4 yet, or?
I think we're closing in on 4.
Closing up on 4. Okay. What is you've already talked about what you see for Tabletop Misfits, what you kind of want your space to be. Where are you at now with making that dream kind of a reality?
I finally have found a balance where I feel comfortable. We do a lot of bi-weekly shows so that I have those breaks in time between the weeks. Gives me time to prepare, to not have to be scrambling every waking minute to make sure that the next show is ready for the next game and things like that. I think we're on an upscale for that, for that dream to happen. And I think that we're moving in a direction that I feel comfortable as the lead driver for Misfits, to not just be able to say, this is my project anymore, and we're bringing people on board that are taking on shows themselves and making it a space for everybody.
And how has that process kind of been like for you?
At first, we brought on 5 people when I first started the Misfits, because it was a group of us that were all writing together at the time. And then I started watching what bringing on people does. Certain people's expectations are different. My expectation at the time was, we are going to be the next big scene. We're going to try to push as hard as we can in everything we can do. And realizing I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the technology acumen at the time. I wasn't prepared with the actual mechanics of it. All I knew is I wanted to tell a good story. And I realized that for this type of a space, there's so much more that has to be done besides that. And then I moved to asking everybody, as slowly people would trickle away, as they're like, oh, I just want to play on the game. Okay, well then why did we build the company together if all we're doing is I'm running 100% of it?
Right.
And now I am much more cautious of who I bring on board, what I'm looking for, and each project is a new way to show something new to the space.
Lost you there a little bit, James. You still there?
Break. I can see you fine.
Oh, you're back.
Okay. I mean, you never moved, so I don't know what's going
weird.
on. Odd. I could hear you perfectly. So what we did is we moved away from Dungeons and Dragons a little bit. We're only running one show of Dungeons and Dragons, and then here in the next couple months, we're going to release 2 new shows that are once again going to be kind of like mini series.
Okay.
I like that feel a little bit better, and I think it does blend better with my goals rather than me running a long-term campaign. Short campaigns are nice.
Yeah.
You know, you get a season going, everything's great. You close out the season, you give a few months, and if the game was fun and the group was enjoyed it, then you can bring season 2 on. But it gives you those breaks and times for other people. And I think that's going to be the next big step for the Misfits. It's like we've got 2 shows coming up here in the next couple months.
Yeah.
We've got the One Ring, which is amazing, from Free League Publishing. They're fantastic. We ran a 12-week series from them 2 years ago when we did the There and Back Yet Again, and we did that with them trying to find out some information on how the orcs were being created in the pits of Moria, or in the pits of not Moria, Mount Godabad, or Gundabad, and that's where they headed. And it was a great little adventure, and we had a lot of fun. But this year we decided that the Misfits are meant to do something different.
Okay.
So we did our first actual casting call. We've never done a casting call before. And we let the casting call go out wide. Yeah. We did Instagram, Thread, Discord on multiple Discords, Facebook, and we got 26 people that were interested. We had to pick 6. It was rough. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, is actually like interview absolutely everyone and go, okay, these are the ones we want. And our goal is to not only give a diverse cast, but a diverse cast when it comes to experience.
Okay.
We didn't want to have the same people that were showing up on every single stream and every single Twitch channel. We've got people that have never streamed before in their lives, up to people who are known in the industry. So we're really excited to have that plethora of the group that we have because of that opportunity. So
where do you think that the industry, now that we're kind of talking about it a little bit, where do you think the industry is now with other channels and like what they're kind of getting ready to produce or are producing? What's the trends that you've seen?
I mean, I currently am still seeing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, it's the powerhouse. We can't deny the fact that it's the largest known system in the world. But what I have started seeing is people are willing to look at other things. With how big Shadow Dark kicked off, I'm just waiting for somebody to start running Shadow Dark. I've already looked at it. I'm waiting on my Kickstarter to drop so I can start running Shadow Dark. And all of the Free League games, they have so many good ones. And but there's other systems that people aren't playing online yet that we're looking at maybe bringing to the space as well, because one of the goals that we have is not just to show off new players, but it's to show off new games. And you know, Chaosium is a big name that a lot of people know. You don't see really anything other than Call of Cthulhu out there, and they've got so many other games. And a lot of that comes with the collaborations I've been able to make during convention speaking and things like that, where really I think that would be my next goal for me specifically. Maybe not the Misfits as a whole, but for me specifically, is to start doing panels and to start doing things at conventions, so that I'm not just running games at conventions. I've been running games for conventions for almost 5 years now, and I love doing it, but there's so much more that could be done. So,
okay, so
I'm a plethora of craziness. Tell you what, I'm so busy, it's not funny.
So, you've talked about you getting ready to start a couple mini series. Is that where you see the industry shifting, or do you see it kind of sticking to, at least the way I've seen it, is a lot of one-shots, like a lot of one-shot games? Do you see it? Do you think you're ahead of the curve on it shifting to mini series, or do you feel like that's not a direction you see it going?
I see it. So I think because the pandemic has now kind of died off and we're back in kind of a swing of normal, I'm seeing miniseries and one shots as being the normal compared to the long form.
Uh-huh.
You know, we don't got time, and a lot of times I'm even seeing not only that, but I think something I'm seeing and noticing, at least in my own life, and a lot of people that I talk to, is the time that people are running these series and these one shots is dwindling too. And I think that's where miniseries are going to come into a big play. Is I'm running 8 episodes, 2 hours at a time, and then I'm done with that story. I've done it in very small chunks that people can digest easily, and they can digest it in either Twitch format or they can digest it in podcast format. You know, I'll never get, I don't believe that it'll ever get back to the point where people are going to be able to sit down for 4 hours and watch a show every single night.
Right.
You know, like it did back in the, you know, late 2021, 2022 type time frame. So I do think maybe it's a new shift. I think it would be a fun shift to see, especially for new systems, because it allows people not just to see a system in a very, very small pocket. Because the downfall with running is a one shot in a new system is you don't see the progress of how the system's built. You're just seeing that one moment in time, boom, done. But what about if they have unique mechanics that do when you grow, like Dragonbane, which Dragonbane is every session you grow, and there is no class, or they're not class, there is no leveling. It's just your skills grow and your character slowly gets better. There's a couple other games like that, and I think that those types of streams are going to grow in the near future more so because of that reason, because we don't have the ability to show off everything about a system in one shot, unless you're very good or a long one shot, you know. And I think that would be an interesting twist and change for the industry, at least for the content creation industry.
Right. Okay. So you're about 4 years in, right? We've kind of talked about where you see the industry going, where you've been, your advice for new content creators. Is there been anything that is kind of that you've experienced that has kind of helped shape the way you approach content creation now?
Watching a lot of content creators when they explode and understanding why they're exploding has definitely helped a lot. It also has shaped me in a way of understanding that, like I said before, this wasn't a goal for me to do this full time. And I noticed that when those moments happened, because I didn't have people in the space that understood social media and the extra things that go to content creation that takes hours and hours of extra time. I just watched you roll your eyes so far back into your head. I completely understand where you're coming from.
So
with
hard.
this. It's so hard. And that's the downfall that comes with this, because I just want to tell a good story.
Yeah.
You know, I love doing the extras on it. Like, we do intros, we do outros, we do promotion videos or imagery. But that's it. Like, this is the first year we're even diving into clipping, episodes, because it was so much work.
Yeah.
And I've got help now that makes it a lot easier. It's definitely a different world now when it comes to, this isn't just go on Twitch, tell your story, and get off Twitch. No, there's so much that goes behind it. And that's the one thing I will tell people who want to get into the industry is you have to take, either you do it as a group of friends having a good time, or you have to understand the whole puzzle piece, which is so much more.
If you were to boil it down to like a few jobs for, like, if you're coming in with a group of friends, what would you recommend for people that are maybe trying to build a team or stuff like that?
Somebody who knows social media, for sure. Social media is going to be your biggest way to get information out. Um, somebody who understands the tech of OBS and understands the technology of audio. Your audiographer is going to be your biggest fan or your biggest friend, because they're going to be able to not only do the video portions of it when the audio seems wonky or twisted and things like that, but they're also going to be able to utilize that ability to get it across multiple platforms. I think the biggest thing we're seeing now for growth is that you see it in multiple platforms. Not everybody can digest it on Twitch.
Yeah.
I can't even get to Twitch on my computer at work, so I'm not doing it on Twitch. So I've got to go to YouTube, or I go to a podcast and I listen to it that way. Podcasting is huge still. I never thought it would be, but podcasting is still a very big industry. And it's just another platform for you to grow on. And I think that it would definitely be your biggest help. So yeah. And then having somebody that kind of can keep everybody together, which was my biggest key. I am a cat that runs in 1,000 directions. And the first person that I brought on my team was a friend of mine that I had met through life that is a project manager by trade.
Okay.
And immediately things changed, because it was like, hey, let's break out this chart. Let's plan our year out. And I was like, you can do all this? Like, I just go off on the next job just kicks off, and I just go on the next cat.
No one is texting me what I'm doing tomorrow, so I don't know what the
job. And it's not that bad, but it does, at least we have a chart that we both can log into and look at and go, okay. And it's crazy though, because even with some mishaps that have happened with scheduling for the new show coming out, we literally just, okay, so where does that push us? And it's just, you move the chart over and you're, okay, so this is what's going to happen. This is when he can drop his show then, and this is where we can move everything along.
Wow.
And it's just giving those quick moments.
Yeah.
And then go out online and find the useful tools that they're out there. That's the fourth guy, is to have the resource guy who just goes out there and figures out where all the extra cool toys are, like scheduling material or scheduling opportunities, things like that. And if you want to do this as a business, you have to accept it as a business, which means there's going to be expenses. That's the last thing I'm going to say, because you're either going to be doing it in time or you're going to be doing it in money. Both are going to be helpful, but if you're doing it on your own or you're doing it with a very small team, sometimes it's worth it to pay $15 a month to have an ability where you can load a video up and go, I need it to go here, 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 and here. Done.
Buffer,
and it takes care of it
so
for
helpful.
me. Yeah. So stuff like that is definitely going to be your key to getting bigger faster. But yeah.
Okay.
It's weird though, because this is like only like a smidgen of the different things that I do in this space.
I know. You could literally spend an hour just be like, all right, these are all the things that need to get done every week.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I'm also a writer. I'm also a professional dungeon master. I use professional with quotes nowadays because I don't do it for money anymore.
Okay.
But I did. When I was active duty military, it was how I paid for conventions. I would run 3 to 4 games a week or bi-weekly for people. I was a part of the beta for StartPlaying.Games when it was launched back in 2021. So.
And you got the leave to go to conventions?
What?
You got leave to go to conventions?
Yeah.
That's how I know
I did.
That's how I knew you were in a Marine.
Yeah, no,
Marines don't get leave.
Yeah, no, I mean that was what it was. Like, it was like, hey, we're going, and the crappy thing, if for active duty is if I'm taking a 4-day weekend, guess what? I get to take leave for all 4 days because I'm out of town.
Yeah.
And I hated it. Now I'm not that. I'm a civilian world now, and I love it. It's so much better for that. I take 1 day of leave, and that's it. 1 day of PTO. I don't even call it leave anymore. It's 1 day of PTO, and I'm out the door for a whole weekend. So, but yeah, it's been a weird world. The first thing was just to create this space to tell stories.
Yeah.
And then I have a personal mantra of myself to try is this, and this is something that has worked over building this branding and stuff like that is where can I get into that I'm not supposed to get into when I'm at these conventions? And that has been the funnest thing I can do. Getting to GaryCon and being able to play games with Luke and play games with Jeff Richards from Chaosium and Kelsey from Shadow Dark, like getting in front of these industry leaders and being like, hey, let's roll dice. And it's a different world now. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. What advice would you have then for like aspiring content creators to come into these conventions and like make an impression and not come off as either an asshole or someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing?
Be very humble. I think would be the first thing I would say. Realize that these people are just like you and I. Don't fanboy. I mean, that is my biggest thing I tell everybody. If you're walking up to somebody, walk up to somebody as you are a content creator. You're not just Joe Schmo asking like, "Hey man, can I get?" No, ask the questions. Get involved. And the last thing is try new things very often. If a new game is sitting down, or if you randomly and you have time off, and you see somebody sitting there, go jump in a random game. You don't know who you're sitting down with. This year, I have sat down with so many people and realized what I sat down to 20 minutes after I sat down to it, and I was like, "Oh wow, like this is who I'm playing with." Like, a great example for this year was. I worked with Paige up in Philadelphia. It's a small convention that's growing massive fast. Mm-hmm. Third year, and they're already going to have tripling their numbers this year alone. Yeah, it's crazy. But they're up in Philly, or they're up in Pigeon Forge, so around Philly.
Yeah.
And first night we get there, I had met with the guy. I literally messaged him one message. I said, "Hey, this is what I do. This is my interview show. Would you be willing to have us come up and do some press for you guys?" And they said, "Sure. Here's a press badge. Come on up, hang out." First night, we sit down. We're taking some pictures, and one of the volunteers walks up and says, "Hey, there's some extra seats over there. You should go sit down." Cool. We're like, "Hey, we got all our pictures for the night. We can go sit down and do stuff." I'm sitting down with Zeb Cook, running Return from the Isle of Dread for 16 players.
Oh my god.
In BX.
Yeah.
Not just in second edition, in BX. So, and he hands out 2 character sheets per person because he knew you were going to die. Yeah. I mean, Zeb Cook is a legend in this industry.
Yeah.
Wrote second edition books across the board. He's written for Elder Scrolls. He's written all sorts of incredible materials. And just being able to sit down and roll dice with where he's telling the story, it was like walking back into childhood again. It's like, oh, I'm here now. I get to be the one that rolls the dice and gets to play the fun.
Yeah.
And the next morning we did the same thing. And we sat down with Rich Cook, who wrote Forge of Fury from 3rd edition. And we didn't know what we were sitting down to, but it was just out of nowhere. He was like, "Yeah, I have some free time. I don't really know what I'm gonna. I know what I'm running," and because it was called Return to the Forge of Fury, and I was like, "Okay, what's this like?" I was like, "I've played Forge of Fury," and it wasn't until I sat down and played through it, and I was like, I looked at him and I looked at the book and I went, "That name and that book are the same thing." So. But I have these all the time. I mean, it's crazy, these conventions that you go to, and then all of a sudden you're looking down the road and you're like, I know that person.
Yeah.
But it's cool when you get the opposite too. That's an interesting feeling I've never had for a long time, and then all of a sudden it happens and you're like, how do you know me? 'Cause So, you and I met at Unplugged 2 years ago.
Was it Unplugged? I thought it was Gen Con, the first time I went to Gen Con. So Gen Con 2 years ago?
No, it was Unplugged.
It was Unplugged?
No, it was PAX Unplugged. Yep. Because it was my first year at PAX.
Oh, yeah, mine too. Oh, good times.
Yeah. Trying to go this year. We'll see if it works out.
Yeah. feel like that's
They
everyone.
moved it.
I feel like everyone's having a tough time with cons this year for some reason.
I've picked up way too many conventions this year, so I have to watch.
Okay.
I mean, I've had 3 already this year, and I've got at least 2 more planned. So, because we've got Gen Con, of course. I'll be running games at Gen Con this year again for the 5th year in a row. Probably with GUI Cube as normal, though Chaosium has requested that I come in and run with them as well. So I might be doing some Pendragon, some RuneQuest.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, some new stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we're getting ready to come to the end of the interview here, James. I'm going to ask you, is there any dream projects or collaborations that you'd like to pursue in the future?
You betcha. All sorts of them. I've got a box of them over here next to me. Real quick, I mean, we've got the One Ring coming out here in the next couple months, and that's been a dream for me. As a huge Lord of the Rings fan since I was a child, this is a dream come true to not just play in Middle-earth, but in a system that is built around Middle-earth. So there is things like the Shadow and Hope, and the idea that if I shoot you, you die. Like it's beautiful. I'm the killer DM. A lot of my friends will call me that because I've never been in a convention, or I've never run a game, a long-term campaign game, where I haven't at least killed one player.
Okay.
At least once. I've never done a TPK yet, but I've gotten very close. I feel like if I do a TPK, I've failed the party, because that means I went way overboard.
Yeah.
But that's a different story for another time. So the One Ring is a big one that I'm super excited to be running here in the next couple months. And that's going to drop over on our show this late spring, early summer. My co-host is going to be running his first game ever, and it's going to be streamed. It's going to be Power Rangers, and it's going to be super awesome. Dream projects, though. I'd love to run a werewolf game. I haven't played werewolf since I was high schooler, so... got a couple others. Shadow Dark has really become a passion of mine over the last couple months. I love the system. I think it's a lot of fun. It's got a little bit more grit to it than normal D&D does, and and then my first play on stage would be a dream.
Yeah.
We're applying for a couple of those at Gen Con and at PAX Unplugged. We're gonna see if we get one. If we get one, awesome. I really want to do the One Ring. We're working with Free League Publishing to actually be like sponsored to go, which would be awesome. But I don't want to do Dungeons and Dragons on stage. I want to do something else. I want to do something that's different.
Yeah.
And I think that is my passion nowadays. Is it's like Dungeons and Dragons is great. I love it. I've been playing since I was 14 years old. But there's so much more out there, and I'm really excited about those systems.
Okay. Has there been like a pivotal moment or turning point in your career that's kind of shaped the way you approach creating content?
I think for me, it's when I started finding people that had the same exact game plan that I had. At first, I thought I could just get friends together that were all excited to run a business. And that's not how that works. You have to have there has to be a complete game plan that is focused by everyone on the charge. Otherwise, you're going to be a one-man show very quickly. And that would be my biggest pivotal moment, was finding people that had the same exact passion, they had the same exact drive, and they were willing to put the work behind it and not just kind of run behind with everybody else.
Okay. All right, James. Well, then that's going to bring us to our last question.
Okay. What's our last question?
All right. You already know it. It's
okay.
Renowned the world over. Stretch it out for the TikToks.
Yep.
So, James, what message or impact do you hope to leave through the... you fucked me up. I'm going to start over. What message or impact do you hope to leave through your content on the geek space?
Oh. I think it's very, very simple, and that's everybody has a space. And that goes from the person who's never been in the space before all the way up to the person who has been in it for years. But I want to kind of break it down a little bit more and say everything has a place too, which is where we're growing as the Misfits in that direction, which is don't stick to what everybody else is doing. Try something new and see what happens.
Okay. All right. Well, then that is going to bring us to the end of tonight's interview, James. Thank you so much for joining me. We are going to open up to viewer questions. So if you have a viewer question, go ahead and get those in the chat. We'll start going through those as they come in. While those come in, though, we're going to switch over to our Dicey Questions segment. These are 20 random questions determined by D20 roll. That being said, James, I need you to go ahead and roll me a D20.
Crap, I don't have a D20 on me right. Hold on. I do. We got a 2.
Okay. So, first and foremost, this is a two-part question. What is your favorite franchise? This can be any way you want to pursue this. And then I want you to tell me, what do you think is the most overrated franchise?
Any way I want to pursue this. Okay. I think right now, if I didn't say this, I haven't said it enough. My favorite franchise right now is probably Free League Publishing.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Well, kind of sponsored.
Semi-sponsored.
Different. Yeah. I just think they've definitely brought a new style of gameplay to the gaming space that not everybody's used to. Mm-hmm. And it has become, a lot of their IPs are just a lot of fun. Like, a lot of fun. Not to mention, big Lord of the Rings fan. If I haven't said it enough tonight.
Okay.
Now, franchise that's, you said overrated?
Yeah.
Oh man, I know somebody's gonna stab me for this one, and I don't care, and it's probably because it's the most expensive thing I've ever had to deal with. Games Workshop is ridiculous.
Whew. That is definitely gonna get you. Fighting someone from 40K is gonna kill you.
That's fine. I love their stuff.
Yeah,
I do, but the price tag on those darn pieces of plastic is nuts.
Yeah. There was a time I looked at 40K stuff. I was like, this looks really cool on the shelf.
Yeah. There are so many systems out there that do really interesting wargaming that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. I mean, because not only that, but 40K is one of those ones where 40K specifically is one of those ones where you can't bring an unpainted set either to the table, so you have to have a nicely painted set, which is going to cost you even more money. Or you just get really good at it. I mean, I know a lot of people are very good at painting.
Yeah.
And normally those are the types you'll see that are playing 40K are the ones who are very good at painting. Because they're just incredible. No, I think in my opinion, though, there is a lot of wargamings out there that Games Workshop kind of like overshadows, and I feel bad for those places because I think a lot of them are really good as well. Parabellum being one of them. They have some really cool. Their minis are really neat looking. Yeah. And you can use them for fantasy stuff all over the place. So I can use them for all sorts of things.
Okay. Go ahead and give me another D20 roll.
Yeah. We're doing it on the official Tabletop Misfits wooden tower.
Nice. Love it.
Label. Yeah. Make it loud because it's real close to the mic now. 4.
Wouldn't bet at all. Who is your favorite character in either sci-fi or fantasy? You feel free to include one you've created if that is your favorite.
Oh, favorite character in sci-fi or fantasy? So, I mean, favorite character, of course, is going to be the character I've been writing about since I was 8. So there's always that character.
Yeah.
But besides that one, that's hard. For me, I like to find characters that are not sci-fi and fantasy and bring them into sci-fi and fantasy.
Okay.
one of my favorite characters that I run right now as an NPC is a character that is modeled off of Red Reddington from the Blacklist.
Okay.
He's the underlord of everything that happens, and he's always kind of scheming at the same time, but the players are gaining something from it, so they're okay with it.
Yeah.
But it's he's a tiefling, and he kind of runs the underbelly of everything that happens. And every once in a while, he'll come up to a player and be like, "Hey, I know you're heading here. There's this flower I need you to get a couple petals from. When you get there, drop it off, and I'll give you an extra, 40 gold." And he only asks one player to do it, and it's usually a player who already has some sort of a gray morality anyway, so they don't affect him as much. But it allows him to then push a new direction somewhere else in a different pathway. And he's popped up in multiple ones of my games since then. I'm trying to think. The Witcher's another one. I really love the way the character is built. He has this dark backstory, but at the same time, there's so much to it outside of that. Not to mention that it's actually built from mythology compared to what everybody thinks the games are.
Yeah.
There's so much to it, that world, the Polish mythology of The Witcher and those types of characters. Those would probably be my two favorite right now.
Okay.
What's yours?
Oh God, I don't know, man.
He's like, you're not allowed to do that.
I don't know. I really like the Wheel of Time, right? So I've been watching the Wheel of Time show, and knowing what I know of the books, I'm really excited to see what they do with Rand in the show, if it gets approved for another season, which it should, because the show's awesome. So
it's very good.
I'm hoping that they do another season, because I really enjoy the character of Rand. Plus, in the books, it's like one of the first polyamorous relationships, at least that I remember seeing. So that was fun.
That is fun.
But so that's who I'd go with in this moment.
Yeah. Another cool concept characters. Is it? Shoot, I can't remember what the series is called, but it's built off of the same series as the Golden Compass. Shoot. But the concept was so good. It's like Darker Than Black. I can't remember what it's called now. But the idea of the daemon is very unique to me, and it's very interesting. Of giving it almost to the point where I actually started writing a series for my kids, because that's what we were using, the system called Wildlings. Okay. Which is the kids play a character, and the parents get to play the daemon. Yeah. Or the wildling. So you're kind of giving the ability to give some morality to the game without having to dictate what the players are doing. And it's such a unique concept, I think, to have that link of character to a familiar of some sort that actually has sentience. Yeah. Like, it's not just the familiar. It's something with with it's like its own emotions and.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good game for parents and kids to play too. Like,
it is.
I like that a lot. All right. Yeah. Remember, if you have any questions for James, go ahead and put those in the chat right now. Otherwise, we're going to need to wrap up this interview. I need you to go ahead and roll me one more D20 roll there, James, and see if what we get.
They were finally at a higher number, 16.
All right. What is your zombie apocalypse survival plan?
Oh, goodness gracious. Right now, not much, because I live in an apartment at the moment. But I have a lot of friends who are much more loaded than I am as a prior military member. Yep. Probably heading to one of their places and buckling down. Yep. The other thing would be is I would really love, the game plan would be is I would get as far away from society as possible into the world that I could. And I would not know how to deal with that after that, because I didn't do Boy Scout camp or anything like that as a child, so I have no idea how to live like that. But finding I have this dream of being able to do. I have friends of mine that live in Scotland, and I have friends of mine that live in Ireland.
Nice.
And you go up to like the Shetlands, where these ruins are still there, and they're still exactly the way they were, 100, 200, 300 years ago. And time just doesn't go anywhere. It's just there.
Yeah.
I think seeing something like that and being able to live in something like that, even when everything is going to hell, that'd be the dream at that point. I'd be like, nope, I'm gonna go find my world. My fantasy is staying here, and I'm going to live here, and y'all can go away. Because it'd be so far away from the world that it would take forever for zombies to even find the place.
Right.
So, as long as nobody followed.
All right. That is going to bring us to the end then. We don't have any viewer questions, which means we answered everything everyone might want to know about you in the interview, which is a good thing. That being said, James, where can people find you next? Where can you be found?
Once again, you can find me anywhere where the Blue Wizard is located. You can find me over at Twitch at tabletop_misfits. You can find me at tabletopmisfit on Instagram. You can find me at tabletopmisfits on Facebook and TikTok. You can also find us at Tabletop Misfits over on YouTube. Right now, we are running a bi-weekly game on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Icewind Dale. We've been running it now for 37 episodes for a little over a year long. And every Wednesday night, you can find me on my interview show over at Tavern Talks, where New Age Geeks will be joining us in the next couple months. And you can also find my buddy who's currently streaming on our channel over on... as he's currently building Gunpla. So we do Gunpla, we do Lego, and we do miniature painting. So we do a little bit of everything. If you're excited and you want to ever play games with me, keep an eye out on Gen Con and PAX Unplugged, as I'll be running games probably at both of those. And yeah, it's always on the socials. And I've gotten better. I'll give it that.
I swear.
I swear, 3 years has finally trained me. I've gotten better.
All right. You said your friend's streaming on what channel?
Tabletop Misfits.
Oh, I didn't hit the following button. That would make sense. Why?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
We're over there too.
All right. Well, we're gonna raid over to that channel because why the hell not?
Yeah, I think he's building his next Gunpla. So, hand over there. We're trying to figure it out. We might be doing two.
Is that a unicorn backpack I'm looking at here?
Probably.
Cool.
Is he working on unicorn?
I don't know. The backpack looks very unicorn, but I don't see the beam sabers yet. Anyways,
we're working on tonight.
We're gonna raid over to Tabletop Misfits. I got nothing else. If you guys got nothing else, remember, we love you, geeks. Good night.
Have a good night.